Coming up on American Medicine Today, the war in Ukraine has disrupted hundreds of organizations, including one that takes care of orphan children. Markham Davis tells how Abundance International is stepping up to the plate.
This is American Medicine Today, brought to you by the Bonati Spine Institute and Alfred Bonati, MD.
Welcome to American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Bonati alongside Ethan Euchre and world-renowned orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Alfred Bonati. So as Russia's war with Ukraine rages on, one particular group of victims who are often overlooked are the children, many of whom are now homeless due to incessant bombing. Joining us to discuss is Markham Davis, CEO of Abundance International, Inc., a nonprofit dedicated to bringing life-giving support to the orphans of the Ukraine. Thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here. Really grateful to be able to share these stories that need to be told. They're certainly not being shared in the news, and we appreciate the attention.
Absolutely. So how did a Texas man become involved in the Russian war in Ukraine?
I've been living there for the last 10 years, actually. I had family there, and I had a 501c3 nonprofit. At 2012, we decided we just wanted to, as business people, wanted to get back to the community, and literally walked into an orphanage and said, "What can we do for you guys?" And they said, "Well, who are you?" And it all began, but it began quickly because we realized how short the needs were being met from the government. And we, in the first year, were building ICU units. We were obviously supplying diapers. They were literally having the kids do stations on pots. We began providing food. Then we built a learning center for the Down syndrome kids. And then we adopted a second orphanage in the city of Kherson. So it just continued to grow. And the loving part before the war was that we could sit with these kids and hold them, and the directors of the organizations appreciated us so much. They would have the kids make crafts for us, and it was a love fest. You just didn't want to stop, and the give and take was one of the greatest things I've ever experienced in my life. So we were glad to continue to grow. And of course, I was living there on February 24th when the bombs hit, and the needs escalated dramatically, and we expanded our reach to now, we've helped over 22 orphanages with over 2,000 children, including 5 in the Russian-controlled territories of Kherson. And it's been one of those things you never thought, just as, like you said, a guy who was over there and just fell in love with the country and the kids and the culture would be there for such a time as this.
How has the care kind of morphed since the war happened? Because in the literature we had, it talked about doing things, was it underground?
Yes, please understand, and this became a really psychological traumatic thing for everyone, and we tried to protect the children as much as possible. You understand, even from day one in the war, we would hear air raid sirens going off 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a day. And by law, these organizations, the institutions were required to take these kids down to the bomb shelters, which nobody used before that. I've got video of us going down in there and what we've had to do to makeshift, literally taking what was dirt floors, covering them with tarps, and then having to bring beds. And finally, it got to be, I do an extensive tour of the orphanage underground in Venezia, where we had to rebuild the entire orphanage. It was just too much trauma for the kids to be moved that many times a day, everybody in panic. Yes. So they just live down there, and they come out for their playtimes, they get on the sunshine for their exercise, but in many of these cases, they are living underground.
It's obviously awesome what your organization is doing, but still not the best of conditions to be living in. But I mean, it's in the middle of a war zone. So as we head into winter, as Ukraine heads into winter, it's going to get bitterly cold. What's the plan of action to keep these children warm and safe?
This is the primary pressing question. And actually, we've been addressing it before it became in the news. It was almost 2 months ago, we started doing our first evaluation of what to do. We bought some gas-powered electric generators. We bought 2 tons of coal. And that's just the tip to try to prepare, because the only way to keep these kids warm, we had a crisis situation a couple of years ago. When we adopted the Kherson orphanage before the war, they didn't have proper heating, and they literally could not even use the lower floor of the orphanage because it was too cold. They had to move upstairs. But even if you bundle these kids up like Eskimos to survive the cold, if we can't provide enough coal, if we can't get gas powered generators, electricity is still the regulator for the gas to keep the buildings warm. So we're doing everything else to aside. First of all, we hope electricity stays on, the gas continues to flow. And if not, we have gas powered generators, at least keep the electricity on. So hopefully the gas can continue to flow because they're all electric regulated. And worst case scenario, if nothing and nothing else, we can replace the system of heating with coal to try to heat those. And staying ahead of that is very difficult, and it's on the top of all of our minds.
Can you give us an estimate of how many orphans there are in Ukraine? Obviously, you just said over 20 plus orphanages your organization basically started. So I'm sure you know how many you have there. Do you know in general how many children are now parentless and orphans?
Yes, we had, well, please keep in mind too, the orphanages are pretty much the way they were before the war. They come in because the kids were special needs, the parents were incarcerated or incapable, or as a teen pregnancy. We don't have that many that are children of the war where the parents were killed because of bombings, because typically the family structure is pretty solid where it'll go to a grandmother, an aunt, or someone else within the family. However, I do know the database. We have a database of 146 orphanages across the country, and it's because they don't have a foster care system. So orphanages is their way of handling that. And so out of the 146 that we have a database on, we know that there are about 23,000 that were there. And maybe 10% got across the border through safe legal channels, handed to other legal institutions that can care for them properly. But the majority stayed, and those who stayed end up moving the kids from war zone, dangerous areas to safer areas. So now all the ones are overpopulated in the middle of the country. So we simply grew because one director, a doctor who running one organization would call their friend and say, hey, these guys are offering help. And so it's just grown word of mouth. And like you said, I appreciate your comment, because anybody goes to abundanceinternational.org can see the page of photos and what we're doing live. And if you give anything there at all, which we're totally supported by donors, our average gift is $94. We don't have government grants. We don't have corporate sponsors. It's just literally by the love of people giving. But you'll be able to keep the regular updates from us and see what we're doing on a regular basis.
It tugs at the heartstrings, especially when you're a parent and even when you're not. Just thinking about that population of children needing help. What other goals do you have with your foundation?
Well, thank you. AbundanceInternational.org. We're just dedicated to getting these kids through as safe and undamaged by this unscathed as possible. And we love the partnership. We love the American people. You guys just personally give out of your hearts. And like I said, it's just every little person help. We feel like it's a partnership between all of us together. Our goals here are to make sure that we can continue to price about $5,000 a month provide for an orphanage of 50 kids for their food alone. And then we're trying to do a lot of other things on top of that. So all of it's appreciated. We just want to continue to feel the sense of community, if people get the word out and understand that your little bit makes a difference, and you can see exactly where it goes and say, I was part of that. And so we love you for sharing and allowing us to share the story. And you guys, your hearts are amazing too. And we just thank you from the bottom of ours.
What's the future like? And again, that website so people can help out if they're so inclined.
You bet. We really hope for peace, but we don't know. So all we have is today. I can deal with only what I have. I can't predict what the future has. I want to take what I'm given, get these kids schooled. I want to get them in a normal life as much as possible. And certainly their survival is primary. Again, thank you for helping us share the word. AbundanceInternational.org. We've been doing this a long time, but never seen anything like this. But we feel not alone. We feel together with you guys. And thank you for what you guys do in your program as well.
Certainly. Thank you so much, Markham Davis. God bless you and your organization. Thank you for being on American Medicine Today.
Thank you so much.